Good morning and welcome back to Morning Express. It is 7:24 a.m. on this 20th day of November 2014. We're glad you're watching. It is time for State of the Nation. Joining me in studio this morning for a discussion is David Ohito, who's Standard Digital Editor. Next to him is Just from Buki, who's a legal advisor to the presidency. Also with us in studio is Patrick Gadara, who's a communications consultant, and Gunjiri Bogo, who's a political commentator. Gentlemen, good morning, and thank you all for joining us. Let's start with, of course, the sad news of the death of Senator Homa Bay Otieno Kajwang. A lot has been said, but perhaps to give you each a minute to just pay your tribute, how you remember him, your thoughts. I'll start with you, Ohito.
Really a sad moment for this country. We lost one of our best debaters in the National Assembly. But personally, I've known Kajwang from the day he vied for a seat in 1997. I was a cab reporter in Kisumu, and I've really grown up with him politically. He was such a loyalist for the NDP, ODM, COD, Fraternity Now, and very frank-speaking gentleman who really never changed even when he was appointed a minister. Kajwang was just Kajwang. He would drink porridge with the law of the society. He would walk on feet. You know, he never had so many bodyguards around him to push guys and shove guys away. He had a lot of humility. I think Kenyans will miss him a big deal.
I say that it's a great loss for us to lose a leader like Kajwang. It's very painful for one to lose a friend, more painful to lose a family member, but even more painful to lose a leader. And we are all, as a country, I would say, galvanized by this loss. I was personally totally devastated. I certainly subscribe to different ideals than he proscribed sincerely. But when I got the news of his passing on, I was honestly very devastated. And I really sympathize with the family, but more so also the ODM and CORD leadership in general. I think we have lost one of the inspiring leaders for anyone who would like to join politics, because I think leadership is all about inspiring people. So if there's anyone, I'm sure, who really wanted to join a political processes, I think Kajwang was an epitome of mobilization. He was an epitome of whipping emotions and re-energizing their troops towards a certain cause. Yeah. So I feel it's a very big loss for ODM, and in all honesty, a big loss to the leadership of this country.
Patrick?
Well, I mean, I'd like to condole with his family and friends. I think I can't even begin to imagine what they're going through at this time. As a leader, I think he had his foibles, he had his moments. I think he was very good, as I said, at mobilizing and stuff, but I think we should also be aware that there were certain issues that came along with him, both as a lawyer and as a minister, certain accusations about him. So even as we remember the good things that he did or his strong points, I don't think we should cover over the fact that there were certain weaknesses and certain things that he was accused of doing wrong.
Gunjiri?
My opinion, Kajwang was a politician's politician. What I mean is that nearly every top leadership of a political party or a political institution requires a politician like Kajwang. He was a pragmatist, he was a mobilizer, he was a life of the party, literally, in both political parties and wherever functions were happening. So it is certainly a major loss to him, to the country, to the political party, ODM, to the nation also, because one of the things about having people like Kajwang, whether they're in government or in the opposition, is that they challenge the system. They will, when they're outside, they will challenge the system. When they're in the system, they will create opportunities for the system to be challenged. And he made Kenya's politics for the period of time that he was there. But then I would also want to point out this. I've just seen a news clip of people suggesting.
Yeah, which we're going to, yes.
Or maybe we want to talk about that later.
Yes,
but I do console the family. I know this cannot be easy for them.
Right.
Yes.
And it was reported after that it was a heart attack that led to his death. But since a lot of speculation and some of what you were alluding to, if you had that clip by Heshimiwa Mbadi, I think amongst other legislators yesterday, just talking and making some allegations and asking the government to perhaps investigate what they say could have been foul play. Let's take a listen.
Death. We need a thorough investigation. We cannot just lose such a person under mysterious circumstances and then we start making conclusion that it could be a cardiac arrest or it could be related to an accident.
And since the government has got the primary responsibility of protecting the lives of all its citizens, it needs to come out clear by conducting thorough investigations.
All right, some of what the leadership had to say hours after his death. You think what?
My personal opinion is that is what is called trying to leverage a bad situation for political gain. And I say this for a simple reason. Kajwang passed away 36 hours ago. We don't even know yet officially. I mean, we are waiting, yes, for a result. For some politicians to wake up, and I'm really disappointed in my friend Bandi, to wake up and start suggesting that there could be foreplay. It would be this is now sensationalizing that particular aspect of that death. And I say this because as a country, we need to run away from this situation of imagining that big people cannot die of natural conditions. I mean, anytime somebody important dies, there has to be something. You know, death is something that happens to everybody. And to suggest, from what I have read, he had an accident a couple of days ago. Yeah. He drove to hospital and walked into hospital. They said he had a cardiac arrest. I heard somebody mentioning that maybe the accident was not an accident, but the driver says that he was running away from a pothole and lost control of the vehicle. I think it's important for us, and I would throw this as a challenge to the people who are trying to develop this particular narrative. It's important for us to realize that it is a dangerous narrative that we are developing, that every time an important person dies, there must have been something.
I don't want us to lose the fact that we are African. In Africa, people don't just die. There must be a reason.
Well, they do.
They
yes.
do.
No. Which is why, I think I would agree with Kinambadi. Let's wait for a post-mortem report.
But they've not.
But that's not what they're saying.
Yes.
They are not waiting. They already
suggested. Post-mortem report is part of the investigations. It's just to clear the air, so that nobody is really, holds back that he may have been poisoned, he may have been foul play in his death. I think it's part of mourning. If you lived within the Luo culture, you expect such statements. Perhaps it's a blend of cultural mix, the way we mourn. Nobody just dies in the Luo community. There must be some cause. And the leaders, for me, are absolutely right. They're just mourning. It's an expressive way of sending a big leader like Kajwang. Don't misinterpret what they're saying.
In Africa, people never die. Yeah. But also we must appreciate also in line with the Christian teachings that life is fragile and life is also for a limited span of time. I've heard one of the members of parliament allude to the fact that government is supposed to underwrite life. I'll say that indeed there is a right of life, but government can also not guarantee life. So really, it's a delicate balance. But God is really the ultimate giver of life, and Kajwang's story shows us how fragile life can be, and that all of us are mortal.
Well, I think David is being a bit disingenuous here. It's not just in the Luo community that we've seen these allegations come up. I mean, every time from when George Saitoti died to Mutula Kilonzo, yes. There's always this idea that there's some nefarious hand, there's some hand behind it, And I think it points to one thing that it's important that we don't forget, you know, that the way they treat the deaths of other Kenyans, you know, the sort of lack of a morning inquiry. It's very same things. A lot of Kenyans are dying because of neglect. They're dying because of governmental action. They're dying because of violence. You know, not too concerned. You know, not too much concern we hear expressed about this. You know, but one of them died. You know, even of natural causes. Suddenly there are accusations of nefarious hands and things. So I think we should be careful about this and about this kind of double standards where some lives are seen as sort of worth protecting and grieving, and others can pretty much be allowed to pass.
Yeah. Of course, we'll wait and see how that story develops in coming days. But let's talk about the chicken. It has become the new word in town for bribes after tea and kitu kidogo. So CORD comes out and says, you know, this sees perhaps one would argue an opportunity to hammer the point home on the agenda of the IEBC not being the body that should be taking Kenya to the next general elections. Just by your thoughts on this chicken scandal.
First, I have no thoughts on the chicken scandal because as it is at this particular point in time, they're just allegations. The core role of a prosecution in any case is to lay bare allegations. And then these allegations are examined and certainly rebutted, or the examination stage is a test stage as to the veracity of the information that is being quashed by the prosecution. So really, I cannot get myself entangled into whether there was chicken or otherwise, because this is just a prosecution telling the side of the story. But the way the Kenyan media is reporting this story, it's reporting the story as if there has been a judgment already rendered on the issue. And then again, is it IEBC or is it IEBC? This is the interim independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. It's not the IEBC that is in office right now. The matter beforehand at that particular point in time was a 2010 referendum. Then should we have a national referendum to nullify the results of that referendum exercise, because then the IEBC was involved, allegedly involved in the graft claims that we
But was CORD right to then come out early in the day and start calling for action on those that have been linked to these allegations?
Okay, I cannot really say that these are substantive. First, our government policy is that we have no tolerance, zero tolerance to corruption. Corruption in any form or in any manifestations must be fought by hook or crook in whatever way possible. But as to whether the allegations against the IEBC commissioners then can be able to meet the threshold really can only be speculation. I've not myself been able to address my mind and apply my mind to the facts that the other side of this case will adduce or table before the court. So therefore it will be premature, it will be preemptive, and I'll be making very many assumptions to say that this matter can swing either way. But in any case, they are serious allegations.
Gunjiri.
Two things. First and foremost, the whole idea, and this is, I would like to just support what just by saying, Kenyan media has a habit, a tendency of taking what a prosecution says and running with it as if it's gospel truth. We've seen that in the ICC cases. We're now seeing it in this particular. The positions that are taken by the prosecutor.
You should have a newsroom right now.
Yes, and I know I'm in the middle of Lion's Den right here. But the issue of taking the accusations and then reporting them as if they're fact is something that we need to look at. Now, on the issue of CORD running straight out of the ban on this one, it's interesting because first and foremost, the accusations are about October 2008 and the referendum in 2010. ODM was in government, you know? And somebody seems to have missed that particular aspect when they were doing this press statement. They are speaking about the IEBC for the last election, and I noticed Raila spoke about certain things that happened in that election. But these particular accusations are about a time when he was Prime Minister of the Republic of Kenya, and this is a situation that was done that affected his government, and I think he needs to realize that yes, he's in opposition right now, but these accusations are about a government that he led. I would be a lot more careful about how I engage this particular issue if I was him, because this is something that they were overseeing with Kibaki.
So it could boomerang. All right, before we come to your Hito, because we know that the chairman IBC has since vowed to sue one of the dailies over the story. Do you also think the media is getting a little bit too excited with this one?
Well, that would disagree. I don't think that they're getting too excited for it. I mean, I think it's important to make it clear that they are allegations. You know, they're not proven allegations. You know, but it's not. I mean, the source of these allegations and the credibility of the source of these allegations is something you have to think about. You know, the second thing is, and I'll hasten to say they are unproven, so that's where we stand. The second bit, I think a lot of the people being mentioned in there are people who are still in public office. You know, so I don't really agree with you that this is something that's simply in the past. You know, these guys are still holding office either in the IBC or in the government. You know, I think the CS has been mentioned as well. You know, so it's quite important that we clear this. You know, we find out. You know, and we carry out our own investigation. One third point I'll say is if you look, there's a pattern here. The Serious Fraud Office in the UK investigates this. The charges against Okemo and Gisheru, you know, being investigated by the people in New Jersey. I mean, in Jersey rather. The Americans investigating their caches for drugs. You know, the Swiss investigating Anglo-leasing related issues. Where are our investigators? You know, how come we seem to have outsourced this function of investigating things? And don't forget, these are things that we have paid for. I mean, what these guys are being accused of, especially with the IEC case and even with the Okemo case, are people who are stealing from us. You know, as Kenyans, as taxpayers, we end up paying for this thing. So I'd really want to know where are our own investigators, our own investigations, our own prosecutions.
Okay.
I think it's important for us to get to appreciate that corruption is transnational. And therefore, we cannot cling on to the fact that Kenyan investigators must lead the process. One thing that we must appreciate is that corruption cuts across borders. And therefore, if corruption then cuts across borders, then all the countries will be involved in the investigation process. And therefore, let's also give due credit to institutions around the world that are working seamlessly to arrest crime. But also, let's change this notion in this country that one is guilty until proven innocent. Yeah, it never works that way. And I think that is a basic cardinal of upholding the rule of law and natural justice. Yeah, it can never be that way. That if you're mentioned in any allegation, then you are corrupt as dragged in that allegation. Yeah. All
right.
Always in defense of my colleagues, they have done an excellent job. The prosecution's case must be heard. Courts all over the world and in the media is one of the few privileged areas where any newspaper, any TV, any radio can say anything verbatim without being taken anywhere. If we want to avoid such, just make sure the tendering process is above board, open, transparent, free and fair from influence, period. Hassan, whether he ate chicken or not, we don't care. For now, we will cover the prosecution. And should more be said, I encourage the media, cover as much as possible, if possible, verbatim.
Cover as much as possible, but don't be excitable. In any tendering process, there'll always be a winner and always be a loser. Yes. And even if you even use the election analogy alone, we have had people that have lost elections and they never accept that they have lost elections. And therefore, we are dragged in an entangled, long litigious process for ages. Same scenario. If someone loses a tender in this country, especially the high-end tenders, then certainly people will move to courts. Yeah? It's basic principle. Okay. It's only in high school or in campus where you are number 2 and you don't petition the examiner to remark your papers after
I would disagree, seriously.
Yes.
These are serious allegations of wrongdoing that are being made. You know, we shouldn't really dismiss them. We shouldn't be saying that, you know, these are just sour grapes. There are allegations of wrongdoing, you know. And I think they need to be investigated. We need to be clear that these things didn't happen. You know, my point earlier was that where are our own leaders? If it is really us who bear the brunt of these crimes, when they steal from us, when they inflate tenders, etc., where are our investigators taking the lead in protecting our own interests? Why is it that we seem to outsource this function? What's the point of the EACC? If we can simply say, all right, let's leave it to the Swiss or to the Americans to do this. I really don't. I'm discomfited rather with this notion that we within our own borders cannot hold criminal or alleged criminals to account, with our own institutions.
All right, Ngunjiri.
My problem is simple, and maybe David has actually alluded to it. Media. Media is about selling stories. And I have said this before in the same setting. And let's even move away from this particular story. One of the stories you had in your news item was about Bill Cosby.
Yes.
You will notice that what we are now listening to so far on Bill Cosby are accusations, right? So far. But Bill Cosby's legacy and brand and identity and image is being destroyed.
It's chipped away.
Yeah? So far, not a single one of those accusations has been proven. And this is my problem with media. You run, in fact, when you notice, they actually develop the story. So I make an accusation, I say Gadara has stolen. You lead a story. It becomes a lead story. Ngunjiri accuses Gadara of stealing chicken.
And always they'll come to Ngunjiri and ask what your comment is.
You know what they'll go?
Bill Cosby has chosen not to comment.
They'll go to Ngunjiri and ask him, Ngunjiri,
did you steal?
Yes. No, Ngunjiri, you're saying Gadara has stolen. And I'll say, yes, there was a chicken, we were with him, the chicken disappeared, and I don't know where it went, and he's the only one who was there. Gadara will be asked to say no comment, because for him, he's thinking, this is stupid. I don't even eat chicken. But you see, before
but surely then you cannot suggest that we do not cover the chicken was stolen.
Let's look at this particular story we're just covering right now about Chicken Gate, which has now gotten a name.
Yes, Chicken Gate.
We have a situation where accusations have been made against 3 or 4 Kenyans, right? The media here has picked up those accusations that were made in a court, and they are running them here as if they are fact.
Are they really?
Let me tell you something. I just use Gadara's mistake that he just made. What did he just say? How come we don't follow criminals? Then he had to correct himself and say suspected criminals. The minute you make that accusation, Gadara here has already. But you see, you had to correct yourself. No. That's the whole point. He had to correct himself. His takeoff point is they're criminals. Then because he's on TV, he remembered, oh, I can't say that. I must what?
Say allegations is the word.
What's the problem? Ngunjiri Hassan is a public officer. He was not using money from his pocket. This was taxpayers' money. Listen, and we have a court process going on. He has lawyers who will be paid by taxpayers again. They can go and say their side of story.
But
the media will cover.
They haven't even started a court
process. This is all accusations, and then they get into the process of preparing.
Waiting for submission from his lawyers.
And then they're also alleging that the fact that our EACC is toothless. What we are seeing in the UK is a prosecution for 2008-2009 happenings. But we also have ongoing trials in our courts today. One allegation is against the former CEO of IBC, deputy CEO of IBC, and the manager for ICT for IBC. And it's IBC, not IIC. So whereas they're investigating 2010, 2009, 2010, already EACC is prosecuting, prosecuting 2012, 2013. Allegations, and this actually really goes down to all of us Kenyans appreciating the initiatives that our institutions that are gradually, because growth really is gradually getting a foothold in very thorough investigative processes. And today we have a CEO before a doc. I don't really think it can get higher than that, and also let's give them credit. So that also our officers that are involved in these processes are fairly motivated.
Patrick.
Okay, two things.
You're still on the chickens?
Yeah, I mean, I don't get why when accusations are made, you know, of a serious natures and things that we should be sort of blasé about, you know. There are serious allegations of serious wrongdoing, you know, of places where we lost or we allegedly lost money, you know. So it's important for us to find out, you know, for us to investigate it, you know. And it's important for us to ask the questions. Why is it that we want in the lead? And don't forget, these allegations didn't come up yesterday or last week, you know. Our own press reported about them a few years back, you know, when one of the losing companies said it, you know, the why issues with this tender. Was an investigation done then, you know? Do we actually have a system that looks into such allegations that are made, you know, and finds out, did we lose money, didn't we? If we didn't, fine. If we did, then let's hold people to account, and let us hold people to account, you know, not other jurisdictions saying that they were...
But don't they have a role to play? Are you opposed to them being involved?
But in places where we are the primary people who felt the pain or who lost the money,
the Kenyan authorities should take the lead?
Yeah, I think it should be a Kenyan jurisdiction, you know, a Kenyan-led process that takes them in.
Sophia, I think there's a bigger question with Kenya's big tenders. And for me, it runs across bodies, not just one institution, not just the electoral body. It's all, whether it's SGR, whether it's Kenya airports, expansion of the airport. There's something happening with all the big tenders. And I think we must try and mobilize public confidence in future big contracts so that they are transparent. If they're transparent and people see, surely this was won fair and square, we won't be running into such problems.
Can I clarify something?
Yes.
Can I clarify something about big tenders?
Yes.
It is not a Kenyan problem.
Yeah.
Big tenders is everywhere in the world.
Because they're always vested in just many.
It's like presidential elections.
Trade.
Yeah. Do you get what I'm saying? Yeah. Because whoever loses that tender
has lost it.
Loses a huge amount of investment.
Right.
And they have plan B. If we lose this tender, we're going to go to court. Even before you get into the court.
Go to appeal.
Yes, you're going to appeal.
We're going to appeal the appeal.
You do investigations of the tendering process.
Yes.
This is a fight. This is what big tender businesses do. When you're competing for that big tender, whoever wins knows he's going to get hammered by the people.
But the bigger thing should be value for Kenyans.
All right.
Exactly.
I think as a country we need to really have reflections on the procurement process, because what I've actually, within my 18 months in government so far, what I've got to appreciate is that the procurement regime, legal framework that we have in place, more so focuses on processes. Has it been advertised? So there is no analysis as to the quality of the advertisements. The bottom line is it must be an advertisement. You proceed to say that the pre-qualification stage will entail the following. And therefore you realize that the procurement regime that we have in place, which anyway we set up in 2005, from a no procurement terrain. So as a country, as a young democracy, we are advancing and getting a little more sophisticated and embracing trends globally. Then you get to appreciate that the greater focus of the procurement law that we have today is only on the process. Paperwork, trail. There's nothing else about the substance. And therefore, I think the reflections we need to have, thanks to the experiences we have had in the last few years as a country, is in how do we revamp this legal and institutional framework with all the stakeholders involved to ensure that whereas this process is extremely rigorous and vicious and competitive, and there's an elaborate build-up of all the milestones that must be achieved in the procurement process, then what are also the key milestones from a substantial bit that will ensure that we are able to get the best deal in the market? Because you realize that best offers are knocked off on technicalities because of processes. And ultimately, these processes are able to meet the legitimacy test when they are subjected to the Procurement Oversight Authority Board, which reviews all the tendering processes.
All right.
Yeah.
I want us to shift gears and go to Mombasa and focus on what's been happening there. Claims of radicalization. Police have now recovered crude weapons, claiming they found them in those mosques, petrol bombs, hand grenades, and 4 of them have now been closed. And the question is whether that is the solution and what must happen going forward. Gadara.
Well, at the coast, I think we have a situation where we're dealing with the end result of a long process or a long period of us ignoring certain trends or actually taking on actions that they encourage certain radicalizations that are going on. I think there have been several reports that have been made looking at our anti or counter-terrorism strategy, and lots of it has actually backfired in terms of demonizing communities. We might think what happened to the Somalis, Somali community and Usalama Watch, the whatever extrajudicial killings on the coast, the idea of marginalization, which the TJRC covered quite extensively in a report that I don't know is now stuck in Parliament. Was meant to have been self-implementing, and no such thing. So I think our entire approach towards the terrorism that deals with the symptoms, not with the root causes, not with the radicalization, not with the policies that cause the radicalization in the first place. The TJRC did say that, for example, our inability and our reluctance to deal with the issues of land at the coast is what gives some rise. It's part of what gives rise to groups like MRC and to whatever, to radical groups. So I think unless we can go back and not just deal with the fact that young men are taking weapons, it's important to deal with that, if I say that. But it's also important to deal with the why young men are getting radicalized, and to stop with actions that contribute to the problem and not necessarily provide proper solutions.
Gunjari?
A couple of things. First, I have a problem with Adara's argument. We tend to be justified. Police don't discuss the why you did a crime. They deal with the what you have done. Right? They don't get into the why. You had a bad childhood. They don't deal with those. If they find you doing a crime, they will arrest you. If you resist arrest, they will shoot you.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter why you're doing that crime. That is one of the things we must understand as Kenyans. Yeah. The second thing is, so the people who are supposed to deal with the why are not the police. It's the politicians. No. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying because when we are talking about what happened in the coast, yes, about the things that have been happening. But what Gadara is explaining is why they're happening. I want to talk about what has happened in the coast. We have had young people found with guns, and I guess today, and today it looks like my beat up the media day, because also when I was reading these stories, I get, and I mentioned this to David as we are coming on stage, you get the media is reporting like they also don't believe the police. The police alleged this young man was about to throw a grenade at them, so they shot him. So you get the impression that even the media doesn't believe. Let me finish. This is me. Gadara. This is my moment. You get the impression, and I read that, but then I checked the Nation and I checked the Standard, including the papers for that particular day. That is what alleged. Police alleged. So you're at that point of wondering, okay.
So it's when police says something, it's
it's not. But when I say something, you don't always say I alleged it. When I say that Gadara attacked me, you get what I'm saying? We've already reached a point we don't actually buy the police stories as media.
There's a reason for that. Yes. There's a history that has led to that kind of reportage.
Yes. Okay. So this is now a challenge to the police and their communication to figure out how to get rid of that particular issue, because it already starts as from a bad notion of, but then I don't really buy this story. However, getting now into the point of, I also have a problem with the labeling of criminals. We have, in this country, we have reached a point where criminals are always given labels. Either you're a radical youth, marginalization. more at the coast. Coast is nearly 45% Christian Muslim, right? We have other places like Northeastern where the Muslim population is like 70%. I am still struggling to understand why the coast has become such an issue on the issue of this particular aspect, rather than anywhere else. There must be, and I have to say this plainly, there must be leaders who are fueling this particular conversation in that direction. It appears as if somebody is trying to make the coast ungovernable, to just make it's just pushing, because it can't keep coming. Think about it. The minute that happened, a pastor was cut up, I think, that following night. So it's a reaction, counter-reaction. You attack our mosque, we kill a pastor. So the question becomes, it is not the Christians who attacked your mosque. It is the police, and they have their reasons. Well, I mean, I'm not going to say you go and attack a police station, but why are you going to go and cut up some guy who was coming from evening prayers?
So right. Let me get that contribution.